Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about something I believe many of you have experienced to some degree, namely the mental state known as Thinamiddha. To put it simply, it's that feeling of gloom, discouragement, sluggishness, drowsiness, or sometimes even a sudden wave of laziness. Sometimes we don't even realize that it's taken hold of us. Today we'll be exploring content from a Dhamma talk I've received to understand what exactly this state is. What does it look like, and most importantly, according to this source, what are the recommended ways to deal with it? Our goal today is to gain a clearer and deeper understanding of this topic.
Yes, the topic of the Nimittani ghost is very important because in Dhamma it is considered one of the hindrances or obstacles to goodness and mental progress. Gaining a detailed understanding of its characteristics, symptoms and effects, as explained in this Dhamma discourse, will be extremely beneficial for us. It will help us become more aware of this state that may arise in our daily lives.
Alright, let's start breaking down the details. In this source, the term Thina is explained quite vividly. It's compared to a fever of the mind, or an incapacity of the mind. What exactly does this mean?
According to the content provided, Thina is a state where the mind lacks strength, is not robust, and cannot function or work to its full capacity. Imagine someone physically ill with a fever. Even though they may not appear injured on the outside, inside they have no energy and can't do anything. Thina is similar. It's a direct illness of the mind. Even if the body appears normal on the outside, but if the mind experiences this condition, it becomes depressed and discouraged, unable to perform its functions. It's as if the mind is sick, lacking the energy to think or do anything.
Oh, I see. I understand now. So it's actually a mental illness, right? And what about Mitha? I heard it's related to the mind-body. Is that correct?
Yes, according to the explanation, Mitha will have an impact on what is called Namkaya, which here refers to the three main abstract components. Vedana, which is the feeling of pleasure, pain or neutrality, Sanya, which is memory or perception, and Sankhara, which is mental formations or thoughts. Simply put, when Mitha arises, it causes the system of thoughts and feelings to become sluggish as well. It becomes dull and unable to function as quickly or efficiently as usual. It slows everything down.
Oh, I see. So, that causes the mind to lose its energy, while Mitha makes the system of thoughts and feelings sluggish as well. And how do these manifest in ways that we can actually feel? In the content, there are several interesting metaphors, such as discouragement being like a bat hanging upside down, or like a sugarcane boiler hanging from a pole. There are also other comparisons. It's said that it shrinks inward, doesn't expand, and there's a hardness, like something solid and stiff. How can these be further explained?
Yes, these comparisons really help us visualize the symptoms of the water ghost Mitha much more clearly. The sense of discouragement, likened to a bat hanging upside down or a sugarcane water pot hanging on a pole, refers to a state where the mind has run out of strength to support itself, as if it can no longer maintain its balance as usual. It feels discouraged and weak. As for the feeling of depression, it's when the mind doesn't want to expand outward to perceive emotions or think creatively to find solutions. Instead, it just wants to shrink inward, as if it doesn't want to perceive anything or do anything, and the hardness, which is compared to hard butter, means the mind lacks flexibility, isn't gentle, and isn't ready to be put to use. It's completely stiff, like butter that's still hard and not ready to be spread on bread. That's why during that time, whatever I tried to think about just got stuck. I couldn't come up with anything. The mind wasn't suitable for work or ready to be used. It's a state where everything is stuck and nothing flows smoothly at all.
Wow, that sounds like such an uncomfortable and uneasy state, both physically and mentally. And then, in the content, there's an important question. Is there a solution? The answer seems to offer hope, saying that, in fact, it can be let go of. But sometimes we can't let go because we may lack the motivation to fix it, or we might not see the harm or the importance of recognizing that this is suffering. This point is very interesting.
Yes, this point is very important. The content points out that, in principle, unwholesome actions or all kinds of unwholesome mental states, whether it's Thinamiddha, which we're discussing, or Lobha, Osa, Isa, Machariya, greed, anger, envy, stinginess, all of these are things that should be reduced or extinguished entirely. And among the various ways to deal with these unwholesome states, the method considered the most excellent, as mentioned in this source, is the cultivation of mindfulness through satipatthana.
The cultivation of mindfulness, or satipatthana, means that mindfulness is aware of the characteristics of various phenomena as they truly are. Whether it is physical phenomena or mental phenomena, including the very defilement of stinginess itself, and how does this help to overcome stinginess?
The principle is this. The cultivation of mindfulness, or satipatthana, is when mindfulness is aware of the characteristics of various phenomena as they truly are, whether they are physical or mental phenomena, including the very defilement of sloth and torpor itself. When mindfulness arises and recognizes the nature of drowsiness, sluggishness, or discouragement that is manifesting at that moment, for example, knowing that it has the quality of being sluggish, not agile, not energetic, being aware of it like this prevents us from unconsciously being swept away by its influence. Wisdom will begin to see it as just a state that arises, persists, and then passes away, not as me, who is drowsy or discouraged. Seeing it this way repeatedly will gradually loosen our attachment and weaken the power of sloth and torpor. This is the reason why this foundation is truly a path to extinguishing these unwholesome states.
It becomes much clearer now. Mindfulness sees things as they really are, not by directly fighting against them. Now, there's a very interesting follow-up point in the content. There's a Q&A about practicing mindfulness while feeling drowsy, or when real sloth and torpor arise. This seems a bit contradictory. If you're feeling drowsy, which is an unwholesome state, meaning the mind isn't in a good state, and mindfulness, which must arise with a wholesome mind, how can it actually arise to know the drowsiness? Is that really possible?
This is a very good question, and the explanation in the content really clarifies this complex issue quite well. The principle is this: mindfulness, which is a wholesome mental factor, only arises together with a wholesome mind, such as with great wholesome consciousness, for example. As for drowsiness or Thinamiddha, they only arise with unwholesome states and mental factors that are weak. These two, mindfulness as a wholesome mental factor and Thinamiddha, or drowsiness, which is unwholesome, cannot arise together in the same moment of consciousness. This is correct.
Well then, how can mindfulness be aware of drowsiness?
The point is that the mind arises and ceases in succession extremely quickly. In a single second, there are hundreds of billions of mind moments as stated in the Abhidhamma. Therefore, even though mindfulness and drowsiness do not arise in the same mind moment, a wholesome mind accompanied by mindfulness can arise immediately after the mind with drowsiness has just ceased, and it can recall the characteristic of the drowsiness that has just disappeared, or recognize the characteristic of drowsiness that is currently manifesting, alternating with the arising of wholesome minds and minds with mindfulness. This alternation happens so quickly that it feels as if it is continuous, similar to when we see various images. Seeing or eye consciousness also arises and ceases very rapidly. The mindfulness that follows can also recall the characteristic of seeing that has just ceased or is currently manifesting, alternating in the same way.
Oh, I understand now. So, it's not that they occur exactly at the same time, but rather they arise and cease in rapid succession, so that the next moment of mind which has mindfulness can recall the characteristic of the previous moment of mind that was drowsy.
That's correct. And a very important point that the content emphasizes is that mindfulness is anatta, it is not self. This means we cannot control it at will, like commanding mindfulness to arise right now and be aware of drowsiness. It doesn't work like that. But when the right conditions are present, such as having listened to the Dhamma before or having practiced mindfulness training, when the conditions are ripe, mindfulness will arise on its own. Then it will perform its function, which is to be aware of the characteristics of mental or physical phenomena, whatever is currently prominent at that moment. This could be the characteristic of drowsiness, for example, being aware of the sluggishness, the lack of alertness in the mind and consciousness. It's not just thinking of the word drowsy in name only. It must be an actual awareness of its true characteristics.
This means that mindfulness arises according to causes and conditions. It's not something we can command at will. But when it does arise, we know things as they truly are, even drowsiness. However, The content also mentions that even while being mindful, it's possible to accidentally fall asleep. That can happen too, right?
Yes, that's right. It's completely normal and the content clearly states this. As mentioned, mindfulness is not self, and the strength of mindfulness varies from person to person. Sometimes mindfulness may arise and recognize the feeling of drowsiness for a moment, but if the causes and conditions of drowsiness are stronger, or if mindfulness is not yet strong enough, one may be overwhelmed by drowsiness and end up dozing off. This is neither strange nor abnormal. Training and listening gradually leads to greater and greater understanding, which is actually the accumulation of causes and conditions for mindfulness to arise more frequently and become stronger.
That's very clear. Now, let me return to the components. Let me touch a bit more on the element called MIT. In the content, there are explanations that are very vivid. For example, it says that it envelops the inside like clouds covering the sky, or it wraps and conceals everything inside like a city with its gates closed. What do these explanations tell us?
Yes, these metaphors excellently illustrate the power and function of Mitha. When it is said that it envelops the inside like clouds covering the sky, it means that when Mitha arises, it obscures wisdom and thought, making it impossible to see things clearly, just like clouds blocking the sky so we can't see the sun or stars. Our thinking becomes unclear, we can't figure things out, and we forget this and that. Even other mental factors, which are the mental phenomena that arise together with the mind at that moment, they also can't function at full capacity, lacking sharpness, as if wrapped up or hidden. They can't fully extend their energy to work at their best. Like a city with closed gates, no information gets in and no ideas get out. That's exactly what it's like. It causes the system of thought and feeling to become sluggish and restricted in its functioning.
Additionally, it seems like Mitha is also connected to physical symptoms that we're all familiar with, right? Like the drowsiness that we call mithang, or the yawning that we call sopang, and the kind of drowsiness where your eyelids feel heavy and droopy, which is called pachalaika.
That's correct. All of these are symptoms or consequences that are related to Middha itself. When Middha arises, it affects both the body and the mind, especially the three mental aggregates: feeling, vedana, perception, sana, and mental formations, sankara, which are unable to function at their full potential. This results in symptoms like drowsiness, yawning, a lack of freshness, and sluggishness, making it impossible to perform tasks or work to their fullest benefit.
There's another interesting point in the content. It says that the frequent occurrence of the nimitta can accumulate and become a habit, which is called upanisaya pakaya, or the condition or gateway of upanisaya pachaya. This causes some people to become habitually sleepy or drowsy more easily than others. For example, after reading just 2 or 3 lines of a book, they immediately get sleepy like that, really.
That's right. According to the Dhamma, the repeated arising of any mental state, even though it arises and ceases in each moment, this repeated arising and ceasing accumulates strength. It builds up habits and tendencies which are called upanisaya pachaya, the condition of habitual inclination. So, if someone allows the nimitta of sleepiness to arise frequently without being aware of it in time, it will accumulate strength and eventually turn that person into someone who has a tendency to get sleepy or sluggish more easily than others. This is really true.
It's quite thought-provoking, isn't it? But at the same time, the content also brings up a very important comparison. The case of the arahants. They are those who have extinguished all defilements, including this tendency, completely. Yet they still experience physical fatigue. How is this different? This is
the point that really clarifies things. Physical fatigue refers to tiredness or bodily exhaustion, which naturally occurs from using the body for work, traveling, or doing various activities. Even arahants who have eradicated all defilements still possess the 5 aggregates, so they can still experience physical fatigue. However, the important point is that their physical fatigue is not mixed with defilements, unwholesome states, or mental factors at all.
This point is very interesting. The distinction between the actual physical body and the mental sluggishness that is unwholesome helps us understand ourselves more clearly. Sometimes we are simply physically tired and our bodies need rest, not that we are being attacked by defilements.
That's correct. Therefore, rest or sleep for an arahant is different from that of ordinary people. It is physical rest that occurs together with mindfulness and clear comprehension. not being overwhelmed by unwholesome drowsiness. The Buddha himself once said that even while sleeping, he always maintained mindfulness and clear comprehension. Physical fatigue is a matter of the body, something that follows physical causes and conditions. It is not something that the path, fruition, or enlightenment can eliminate, unlike defilements that are mental phenomena. The content further elaborates that even an anagami, a noble person of the next highest level, still cannot completely abandon some aspects of sloth and torpor, specifically the part that arises together with attachment to existence. However, if one abandons the part that arises together with craving, then it can be abandoned. As for the arahant, they have completely abandoned it. There is no sloth and torpor left. There is an explanation from the commentaries to illustrate this. A mental aversion, while torpor is the 5 aggregates: feeling, perception, and mental formations. It's like a sluggish monkey. Monkeys are restless, but sometimes they sit quietly and appear listless. This reflects non-vigorousness in the mental aggregates.
I now clearly understand the difference between the natural physical state and the mental sluggishness that is a defilement. So, everything we've discussed so far, what does it mean, or how can we observe these characteristics in our daily lives?
The most important aspect of learning Dhamma is that the wisdom gained from listening leads to observing the actual states that arise within oneself. This transforms understanding from mere theory in books into direct realization of what is happening. Therefore, the content in this resource consistently encourages us to, even in moments when we yawn or feel sleepy, what is called vijapika, which we might normally overlook or pay no attention to. But as our wisdom is cultivated and developed, mindfulness can recall the characteristics of the mind or the state of Dhamma at that very moment.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Next time you yawn, try to notice whether your mind actually feels dull and not refreshed.
Yes. With mindfulness and awareness, wisdom observing, you can notice the dullness, the lack of liveliness, and the sluggishness of the mind and mental factors. And that's it. This is the true nature of Thinamiddha, the sign of sloth and torpor manifesting, and such observation arises due to causes and conditions. Even a little of this can help you see the difference when the mind is dominated by Thinamiddha, sloth and torpor, and when it's clear and bright. This is a way to verify the Dhamma through direct experience, understanding that Thinamiddha is not just a term in a book, but a real mental state with distinct characteristics we can know and experience ourselves.
Excellent. Today, from what we have, after our discussion about sloth and torpor, we've gained a much clearer understanding. We've covered the meaning, characteristics, and symptoms, which are likened to mental illness or the mind's unpreparedness, leading to discouragement, depression, drowsiness, sluggishness, and mental stagnation. We've also discussed the approaches to overcoming these states, most importantly, as emphasized by the sources in this series on the practice of vipassana. The key is to cultivate mindfulness in order to recognize and understand these states as they truly are.
Yes, the important thing is that the key takeaway we've gained from today's discussion is about adjusting our perspective toward drowsiness, laziness, or various forms of sluggishness. Instead of seeing them as merely annoying feelings or just a matter of physical fatigue, we should see it as something abstract, a mental state, a state of mind with unique characteristics. The wisdom from training and listening, then understanding, allows us to observe dullness, a lack of agility, and that it is not conducive to work. Through training and understanding gained from hearing and listening, we can gradually recognize these qualities as they truly are, without judging or resisting them. Simply having the right understanding and wisdom is the most important starting point for freeing ourselves from their dominating influence.
And finally, there is one more point. It's an interesting point that invites further reflection. From our discussion about the difference between arahants, those who have eradicated defilements, and ordinary people, we see that arahants still experience physical fatigue and need rest. This is completely separate from the mental defilements. When we consider this, we can understand that feelings of tiredness or lack of enthusiasm can still arise in daily life. And we can also understand when it is simply natural physical fatigue that genuinely requires rest, and when there is a sense of mental sluggishness or discouragement mixed in. Being able to distinguish between these differences may help us develop new perspectives on these feelings in their various forms within ourselves. Consider reflecting on this further.
Finally, I would like to invite all listeners to follow the link where you can listen to the content in detail of this clip in the program, Guidelines for Vipassana Development, episode 1337, by Ajahn Sujin Borihan. Please stay tuned. Goodbye.
Not using the eyes, ordering death, then the meaning of being startled, wanting to see. Still like a fish living in muddy water before it can become clear. Still like a fish living in muddy water before it can become clear. Before you can truly and deeply understand how things fundamentally are, how they operate, and their intricate nature, you have only just begun the profound journey to learn, to acquire knowledge, and to diligently cultivate genuine and lasting wisdom.